Hello, everyone. How much energy is in the room right now? We're going to keep it that way because I'm going to do something that I'm not supposed to do, which is to open up during this to questions from all of you. So if you think that you've got better questions than we're posing to each other, just stand up and someone is going to make sure that you've got a microphone and you can ask a question. So are we ready to meet the panel? Some old friends and new, but we're going to start in the middle, as we always must do. Awesome. Who are you and why are you here today?
I am, good afternoon everybody. I'm managing partner of a fund called the Climate Resilience Fund.
What was that? The Climate Resilience Fund.
We just went out of climate right there.
Yeah.
Can you all hear me? No?
Let's take the other microphone, maybe.
Can you not? At the back, anybody? Front? Put your hand up if you cannot hear me.
Oh.
More? No, I think it's good. Good? All right. Jose? Test? Okay. Take 3. Jose Malem, managing partner of Climate Resilience Fund. We invest in startups at the intersection of agri-food and climate because we think that agriculture and food consumption is a major climate risk globally.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The third attempt was amazing. I know, right? Let's move a little to your left.
Hi everyone, my name is Hussein Abu Bakr, founder and CEO of Muzera. My other co-founder is on the other side of the panel, so Tamer. So we started Muzera 2 years ago. Muzera is an agri-fintech platform linking small farmers to off-takers and the market, and we add other bunch of products like fintech, like digital agronomy support, and I'll explain later in detail. Thank you. Pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, I can give you my microphone.
That one works. I'm Tamer El-Raghy. I'm the managing director of the Acumen Resilient Agriculture Fund. And from the name you can tell we are all about resilient agriculture. We invest in agri-startups in East and West Africa. We are based in Nairobi, Kenya. And we invest in startups with business models that help farmers adapt to climate change. Nice to be with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I just want to bring a couple of things to attention. We're here about revolutionizing agriculture. We're here about VC, and it's all about climate change. So my first question to each of you, if we continue with just the status quo right now, the world is on fire. How does this planet look in 30 years' time, and what does it mean for the people in the room today? And I'm seeing the smile so much on Hussein's face. Let's move to that side first.
Okay, now we're living in very interesting / turbulent times in Egypt, inside, and in the whole world. So for you as an entrepreneur, I think it resembles an opportunity if you're trying to generate an idea of where you could create your own startup, whether it's in ag-tech or agri-tech, clean tech, which relates to environment, water tech, or food tech. In Egypt specifically, there's a food security issue. There's a dollar scarcity problem. I don't know if you follow or not, but for example, Egypt went out of the international agreement for اتفاقية الحبوب in the United Nations. Egypt has been in this agreement for 28 years. We went out of the agreement 2 days ago. No one knows why, but there's big issues happening internally and worldwide. Of course, worldwide you can see in the UK, the shelves in the supermarket doesn't have fresh produce. Yes, it's a bit turbulent time now.
It's wonderful. You ask an entrepreneur, how is the world going to look in 30 years? He's like, great opportunities because the world is on fire. Let's see if we have a similar answer from our two investors. Tamer, would you like to start or? Also, you have the mic.
Tamer knows he's going to give the best answer, so he wants to go last. Look, agriculture and food is simultaneously a huge contributor to climate change and at risk of climate change, right? So everybody knows about greenhouse gases and about the 1.5 degree target. I think it's clear that we will overshoot 1.5 degrees, probably for about 30 years. And then CO2 levels or carbon or GHG levels will stabilize, and maybe the climate temperature will come back to normal. But in those 30 years, we anticipate that there will be so much destruction of crop and land that we have to go into completely rethink how food systems work. All of us will experience disruption to our food systems. The news that Hussein just shared may be one data point therein. We are all going to experience disruption to food systems, whether it's food that we cannot get hold of or foods that we're going to have to substitute out with other foods, or just quantities that we can no longer access. It will happen, and it's not just here, it's globally. So that's one consequence we have to face and that we have to ready ourselves for, and there is a suite of opportunities inbuilt into that risk in how we address the pain, but also start getting ourselves back to a place where maybe we can farm normally like we did in the last 100 years. And the other thing is that agriculture is also a major contributor to climate change. It devastates land, it is a big greenhouse gas emitter, it savages biodiversity. I mean, these are all risks that we have, and it produces very low nutritional food and very disease intolerant food. So all of that also needs to be overhauled while still feeding 8 billion people. So huge challenges, and within there are opportunities as well.
Perfect, thank you.
No, beating that is difficult. I can't.
You missed that. He said, beat that answer if you can.
Yeah.
So I love a panel where there's a little bit of disagreement.
No. Yeah, the challenge when you are in a panel where you have Hussein and Hussam, it's tough. Okay, so I'll try to be in my answer. I'll try to be a little bit selfish and talk about the area where we invest, which is Sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, and Sub-Saharan Africa is a good representative of the South, of the global South, and it's a huge debate right now globally about the global South that is the most impacted by climate change, yet it's the least contributor to climate change. So there is someone who drew two maps of the world. One map representing the world when it comes to how much CO2 is emitted, and then you see Africa is like tiny in that map, right? And then the other map is how much countries are impacted by climate change. And then suddenly you see Africa and India are like massive. Okay, so now these are the most impacted, yes, yet they are the least contributors. So how can we help those who are not contributing to climate change as much as the rest, yet they are the most impacted? And that's the thesis of what we do. Okay, looking at innovative business models, they don't have to be high tech or anything. And Hussam and I, at least, this is something we agree on, that it doesn't have to be high tech. It can be as low tech as they come, yet impactful, and that's what we are looking for. Because otherwise, if we wait until we fix the climate change issue, those are impacted are really suffering right now. I've just come back from Kenya earlier this morning, and last week the government actually banned irrigation from surface water. No one is allowed to irrigate from surface water. Why? Because rivers are drying up. Farmers are killing their cows because they don't have enough food to feed their cows. Kenya this year will import formally. Even in the past, if it imported some informally through porous borders, no, it's the government that's importing this year. So for the first time, we are hearing the GMO debate in East Africa and in Africa. Yes, so could it be the solution? We don't think so, but that's how devastating and how urgent the situation is.
Super, so I think we can see sea levels are rising, food is going to be scarce, it's not really the future we want to live in. But I'm going to take you on a little journey, because 30 years in the future, we probably have sufficient energy coming in from nuclear fusion, we have the printing of food in localities. It's a much better life. but we're not there yet. And yet we have a climate that we need to do something about. So together, are we able to see, is there something that we can do as money? Is VC money able to make any real difference through its investing in either mitigation or adaptation? And before we go on, because I was told, what is the difference between mitigation and adaptation? Because it's very important, I think our audience gets that one. Who has the biggest smile on their face? Not Hossam this time. Tamer, you're looking like you really want to take this one.
Sure, happy to. So mitigation is basically how can we slow down and ultimately stop climate change, okay? So just in a nutshell. Of course, Hossam will be more eloquent in describing it, but I'll try to do it as simple as I can. And adaptation is how can we help those who are impacted adapt to climate change. For instance, farmers, how can we help them increase their yield? How can we help them with adapting sustainable practices? How can we help them smoothen their income curve, lower their income volatility, even start to grow crops that they haven't grown in the past to increase their income, stuff that I think Hussein is better suited than I am to talk about. So these are the main differences between adaptation and mitigation, but Hussam, I'm sure, can do a better job.
It's not about doing better. Is there something you'd like to add to that? Your eloquence is always welcome.
No, nothing to add to that.
How delightful. Then I'm going to move on to my next question on this. Because are we able to innovate ourselves out of the climate irresponsibility we've got ourselves into? And let's go into the VC aspects in a bit. So what kind of innovations are we looking at investing in, or do we see coming into the market that is going to allow everyone here to eat? Hossam, I think I'm going to start with you on this one.
Okay, thank you. So look, the fund that I run invests across three main pillars, right? One is farming technology. So how do we farm more or the same food with less resources? And that can use technology, it can use hardware, software, it can use new and innovative operating models, improving supply chain. All of that is one vertical, right? Then there's a second vertical, which is actually speaking directly to Hussein's area, and that is around how do you make it interesting for talented farmers to stay on the farm? Because at the moment there's an exodus of talent from rural to urban centers or rural out of the country. And if our best, most digitally aware farmers are not staying on the farm, you cannot go and talk to them about digital enhancements and improving and applying technology and so on, because they're gone. They've gone to become security guards in Cairo in the case of Egypt. So here we're talking about e-wallets and agri-insurance products and digital marketplaces and financial inclusion tools and so on. Just getting more cash and more share of the prize to the farmer so that they want to stay on the farm. They have the bandwidth to think about operational improvements and technological advancements and so on. And the last one is particularly interesting to me, which is kind of, we call it the biofood tech side. And that is what new food groups belong in the human food and animal feed chain of Africa, right? So, I mean, Tamer and I both invest across Africa, and here we're talking about, instead of importing huge amounts of grain and soy and maybe alfalfa, which have relatively, high carbon or planetary footprints, can we grow alternatives locally within Africa that have much lower carbon and planetary footprints and could be a quick and easy substitute into those mixes? And here we're talking about algae and seaweed and insects and a whole raft of opportunities. And so I think these are very targeted, individual, quite probably in the bigger picture, small climate contributions that you can make. But if you show that it's there and that it's commercially viable and is venture backable, you can crowd money into the space to then innovate around it and the services around it, and then you start building a new economy around it.
But this really looks like I don't want to say. Was that a clap? Let's have a clap for that. That was really good. Are you saying that you're really hitting not the agri-business, but you're hitting the smallholder farmers and the people surrounding them, or the people that supply or are aggregating the smallholder farmers? Because it does seem like it's a very different view than going for the big agri-firms.
I think I should leave the aggregation of smallholder farmers to Hussein to talk about. That's kind of more appropriate for him. But you're right. There are unique structural aspects of the African and Egyptian agricultural ecosystem that lends itself very much to digital technological intervention to pool and aggregate and create economies of scale around those. But I wouldn't mind handing the mic to Hussein on that one.
Please.
You were asking about innovation and 30 years from now, where we can be?
No, but it's really about from now until 30 years. So what steps can we really take? What innovations can be there now?
Yeah,
Because we
yeah.
can't wait for 30 years for digital printing of food. We need to do something to feed our population. So how are you helping right now?
Exactly. I think innovation always starts when there is a real need. So around 50 years ago, a scientist in the US kept working on a concept of super seeds. He worked on corn, and he was able to develop hybrid corn seeds. Statistically and analytically, if this scientist who won a Nobel Prize did not create these corn hybrid seeds, the human population wouldn't have able to grow and survive. So this was the first agricultural revolution. I think, in my opinion and a lot of people's opinion, we are in a similar situation 50 or 70 years later. Now the pyramid is inverted, and there is a food security issue, there's an environment issue, there's a social stratification and gap issue. So there needs to be another revolution that would aggregate the largest sector populating Africa and Egypt, which are the farmers, and increase their income and produce food for people living in Egypt and outside Egypt. So this revolution is expected to come from tech-enabled integrations and developments. Imagine if food keeps on increasing its price, like now, last week it was announced that inflation is at 41%, and we are going now to start our holy month, Ramadan, which is mainly a high consumption month. So analytically and by simple calculation, this is catastrophic and non-sustainable. So during these times are when real innovations are produced, and young people like yourselves come together with ideas that are workable to save the situation. We are in a real catastrophe. So this is by the government says the same, the private sector says the same, the TV says the same. So we need to work on really solving the issue of producing food while working on the environmental and social issues in a trajectory that's win-win to everyone. And we are lucky that there's a lot of our investment fellows and friends here could reassure what I'm saying, that international finance organizations are very interested to invest in impact and food security startups. So I think we are at the right place at the right time now. Thank you.
I think one of the points that we see, if you look at Lebanon just before the First World War, they were importing up to 90% of their food. The First World War hit, people starved. That food security we see again in times where we have wars in Europe. We had snow in Spain, so Europe wasn't able to grow its own cucumbers and tomatoes. We can no longer afford the energy for the greenhouses in the north to grow cucumbers and tomatoes anymore. So you're quite right, on our shelves in Northern Europe, we're limited to 1 cucumber per customer. That's not that much of a problem, I will admit. But we really feel it. But you've been active, Tamer, for many years now in investing. You've seen a number of innovations, and you haven't just said, I like that, you've put your money behind it. So how have those innovations helped mitigate the climate crisis or to help to feed everyone here? And even if it's a start,
Sure.
what start's been made?
Sure, and it's very interesting because it goes back to measuring your impact. And as they say, if it's not measured, it doesn't exist. And one of the things that we measure every quarter religiously is how many farmers have we impacted through our portfolio companies. Okay? So far we start deploying in 2020. The last number I got last week from my team was that our portfolio companies impacted more than 700,000 farmers. Okay, how? So
700,000 farmers. Another round of applause, please.
And it's not to us. That round of applause goes to our founders, to be honest. So innovation, and again, as Hussam and I agree, it doesn't have to be super high tech. So we always like to give two examples in our portfolio. One of them, they do solar-powered irrigation systems for smallholder farmers. Very straightforward, solar panels. So instead of using diesel, they use solar. So there is a mitigation angle because you are saving carbon CO2. But at the same time, farmers get more water for their crops, so they increase their yield and income by 2 to 3x. And they have more water for their cows, which means 50% more yield on milk. That's all measured, by the way, okay? And if you ask female farmers what they like most about it, they will not mention any of that first. The first thing that a female farmer would say, that her back does not hurt anymore. Why? Because otherwise she will be the one that has to go and fetch the water. Quality of life, guys, okay? So even farmers, they have the right to improve their quality of life. She will tell you that she has more clean water for her kids, okay? This company so far installed more than 35,000 units, okay, in Africa. And they started in Kenya, now their product is in Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, recently Togo, and Ivory Coast next quarter. The next innovation, which is again very straightforward, simple, for if you talk about it to Kies, a Dutch guy, he will tell you, oh yeah, but that's known, which is dual purpose poultry. Okay, chicken that will lay eggs, and at the end of the year, it builds enough meat to sell it. Because for those who know, usually those chickens that lay eggs don't build that much meat. But it's a special breed, genetics that can do both. This company produces day-old chick, el-katkut yani, with some feed, sell it to those backyard farmers. Okay, so a farmer will buy, 10, 20, and then when they become rich, they can buy 50, and then they can maybe have a herd, like a farm of 500 day-old chicks. Now they become super rich. And we have seen those stories, by the way. Why we love it? Because farmers who do that, now they have weekly income. They don't have to wait until the end of the season. They have weekly income. Usually female farmers will tell you that they keep some eggs for their kids, source of protein. Why? Because more than 30% of kids in Africa suffer from malnutrition, okay? And Egypt is not an exception. It's the same, okay? So now, very simple innovation, and it's more about business innovation than technology innovation, which can make huge impact. And when we use a special technique called lean data to measure the impact and clearly identify where the gaps are, more than 80% of farmers who work with these two companies reported more income, higher yield, improvement in quality of life, and the resilience to climate change improved. I'm sorry? How is that VC? Because it's a good point. So we invest in startups because only if their business models are scalable. Okay, so that company, the old chick company I told you about, the group, because they work in multiple countries, as a group, their income is in tens of millions of dollars without revealing any confidential information. They make decent margins, very decent margins. So growth is there. It's not, they're not gonna grow, 2x a month, no, okay? But growth is there, scalability is there, and exitability is very important. We look at it from day one. So you look at these two companies or any company in our portfolio, we always look at scalability, okay, commercial viability, and ultimately exitability. And if we take a step back and try to wear our VC lenses in a different way and think of the US 40 years ago. 40 years ago, VC in the US did not only do tech. Starbucks received VC money. Actually, today, there are companies that would invest in food startups that are not technology-based. Still, people need to have brick and mortar, and they need early stage. It is just, I think, recently, because of the Silicon Valley concept, we always think tech, but VC, it's about investing in early stage startups that are scalable, right? So you have scalability and commercially viable, and that's why it's a VC. But as a matter of fact, does it really matter what we call it? As a fund, we like to call ourselves an impact VC fund because we take impact very seriously. Why? Because we measure it. Why? Because it's part of our mandate from our investors, and we take it very seriously.
Awesome. I think your background as founding Alex Angels with all of its tech startups is backfiring there? Because is agriculture sexy to invest in? And I use the term sexy in the most investor-like way. Are there enough investors willing to put money into agriculture? And is there a profit in doing so? Because I look and I hear of some of the people that you have investing in your fund, Tamer. They're not the traditional investors sometimes. There are people like FMO in the Netherlands, which is a body that does soft investment. Some of your other investors in the same way. So is investment in agriculture something that can be purely commercial, or does it need to have some of the soft funding from different institutions to make it so? I mean, our fund for Southern Africa and food also has a number of NGOs behind it because they believe in that impact element. So let's get into that. Is it soft VC? Is it non-VC? Where are we?
Awesome. Okay. So I founded Cairo Angels, not Alexander. That's all right.
Sorry, Cairo Angels,
Just
yes.
getting it straight up front. Look, there's a lot of intervention you can do in the agri-food system, right? A lot of it has externalities that are not priced, and so they require government subsidy. Others will not even survive on government subsidy, they need grant funding. Some of it is commercial, but very kind of patient capital commercial. And there's a small subset that, in my opinion, is venture backable, and that's where funds like ours invest, right? So, of course, venture capital or angel cannot invest across the full suite of agri-food transformations, but there are some where we can, where we are the right source of capital for that particular venture. I think that's the way around it should be seen. We are not the right source of capital for all founders, right? But we are for some. Now, what makes a deal venture backable or is exciting for a venture capital firm is where you can invest an amount of money that is not, enormous, but the company can run and grow and deliver value growth that is exitable so that the initial investment you made can be returned a few times over, right? That is what makes venture backability. And there's a number of arithmetic combinations to achieve that. If you're going to invest a lot of money, you also have to have a huge amount of growth. If you're not going to deliver a huge amount of growth, but you can get to the growth you got to with not much money, then you're venture backup, right? I mean, you just got to get the numerator and denominator right, and then you're off.
So how does an entrepreneur learn that?
Sorry?
Because I see the entrepreneurs in the audience. How do they learn how to come up with that function and pitch it to you?
Well, I mean, I guess that's a difficult question to answer sort of in a few minutes on stage, but if, I don't know how many agri-food entrepreneurs there are in the room, I wouldn't actually mind telling a show.
Yeah. If you're in food in some way, an entrepreneur, can you stand up right now?
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand, sorry. In Egypt and in other places as well, yeah, we have an international audience. Okay, we've got a few.
Yeah, okay. So look, I mean, So look, if the business is in growth mode, you're about to unlock value or you need capital to unlock value. Maybe you've got a ugly prototype of some facility that just needs capital to kind of so that the 2.0 version can grow, and that there are clear demonstration of margins. You're not wondering how this is going to make money. It's making money. It's maybe not quite covering its costs right now, but you can see how it's going to become profitable. You can predict the margins. You can see the growth. And if you think that it doesn't require a huge amount of money to get it started, it's not like you need 20 or 40 or $120 million to grow, then you are starting to fall into the range of what might be venture backable. And honestly, you don't always have to know exactly if you are venture backable. Come to us and we will help you tweak the business model, maybe stage the investment, get you to a point where you can start introducing debt earlier than you're expecting so that you don't need to keep raising equity capital, because that also helps the backability of the opportunity. So I think the short answer is, are you adding value in the business fairly quickly, even if you're not generating profit immediately and very quickly? It's got to be defensible value. That's sort of the best answer I can come up with in a minute.
But I think it's a great answer because it's also, you're offering help to the entrepreneurs to say, actually, maybe you don't have that successful formula yet, but we'll help put it together with you so you can access the funding and the soft funding and the loans and the subsidies, to use a very dirty word, but they are out there, to take things further. Okay, then maybe it's time to see, is there a question from the audience? I'm looking around. Yes, I see a question.
Great panel. My question is around what I haven't heard mentioned yet is the public-private partnership, because I think to solve the problem, you're going to need public sector, government involved. How does venture drive that?
Perfect. So, a public-private split. So, do you need to have some form of public funds to fund part of this, or does it all come from the private sector? And something that we've been talking about before, if you have a fund, do you need to have a charitable foundation on the side to do the things that you can't afford to pay for within the fund? Sorry, that's a very long rephrasing of your question. I hope it was somewhere soon. Yeah. And from the entrepreneurial point of view, this could be even better. So, yeah.
As a change.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a domain, agriculture, that you cannot play alone. Not just banks and investors, not just startups and private sector. You need the government, you need cooperatives, you need local municipalities, you need NGOs. Agriculture is the core of Egypt. So for example, in our company, Muzara, we're dealing with the Agricultural Bank of Egypt, the largest bank in Egypt in terms of penetration. I don't know if you know or not, but it is the largest bank in terms of branches throughout the whole government, whole country. Also, we deal with local cooperatives owned by the farmers and the locals in order to collect the crops. So, for example, to encourage farmers to grow the main crops that the people need to consume, like sesame, like soybeans, like corn, we are working with the government to decide the minimum price per ton commercially. So we need to work together. We're also signing agreements with the GIZ, the German Development Agency, to build hubs in Upper Egypt, in Qina, in Luxor, to collect the crops from farmers and do added value and spread digital literacy using the application, using digital agronomy support, and being able to reach markets directly. This is a domain that you cannot work alone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to take an example of one of the companies in my portfolio. It's a company based out of Malawi, and we first invested in them because they said 80% of the banana crop rots because bananas grow in a season, we can't get them to market, we don't know what to do. We invested in solar dryers. They could dry their product, sell it for 400% of the price in other months of the year. That company has come to us 3 times, and now is a laboratory where they grow plantlets that they sell and actually give away, because we're sponsored by the UN, to all the farmers of Malawi with replanting the banana crop. What I want to illustrate with this is that I think that investing in people in agri, it's not just normally one play. We're investing in wily farmers that know what they're doing, which is different than a tech innovation, where it's one thing for a set amount of time with a set resource. So are the entrepreneurs in this field a little different, the successful ones? And this time, because I saw the smile from our entrepreneur, I'm putting this one to our investors.
Yeah, so one of the things that we always say that in agri, things don't happen overnight. Okay, things take time. Because if you are trying one thing in one season, you will learn it and then you will apply it the following year. Okay, so things take time. So you need like super resilient entrepreneurs, like super resilient entrepreneurs that are willing to take and be through the hard times for years. Like one of our favorite entrepreneurs in our portfolio company, she's American, and she moved to northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria is not for the faint-hearted Nigerians, okay? Let alone anyone outside Nigeria. So she went there, she saw the opportunity, she built state-of-the-art tomato farming, outgrower scheme for smaller farmers, and built a tomato paste factory, because Nigeria otherwise imports more than 95% of the tomato paste. If you look at what she has done and how long it took her to reach that stage, she's like, that's a special breed. If you look at every single entrepreneur in our portfolio, they are so special when it comes to resilience. Why? Because it's agriculture, generally speaking, is not for the faint-hearted, and agriculture in Africa is not easy. So usually fund managers like ourselves, we have a lot of respect for founders like Hussein, who tackle the toughest problems of the toughest sectors in one of the toughest sectors. So for that, kudos to all of them.
I think there was a point you'd like to make back.
I'd just like to answer the public-private partnership question, because that's a very specific model. You know, PPP is a very specific model, and I've not seen it in many geographies that I work in, with the exception of Saudi Arabia, where there are entrepreneurs who are incubated or supported within governmental universities, and then once they prove tech, deep tech, product, whatever, the government often just parachutes in and says, well done, you are now applying this to our 600 branches of something, go. And that often drowns founders, but it's also oxygen. They come with customers and capital, and they can roll with it. The softer answer on the public-private partnership piece is that in some geographies, you need government to be at least digitally enabled, because if in a country like Egypt, the government is a major buyer of product, then you can't make a useful digital intervention on the farm side if there isn't a digitally enabled customer on the other side of that contract. So sometimes you don't need public-private partnership in that way. You just need them to have reached a similar point to the advancement or the disruption you're trying to drive on the supply side. So that's just my kind of PPP answer. On the answer of the founders, I think that there's a very interesting dynamic that exists in agri-food, which maybe doesn't exist in other aspects of startup ecosystem. And that's a little bit to your point around that the farmers themselves have a lot of the answers. If you're a founder that knows how to listen to the farmer, learn from them, iterate, improve, do it again, learn together, there is secret sauce and barrier to entry in that alone. And it's barrier that another founder from the US or Norway cannot just parachute in and disrupt in a day and a night, right? There's kind of DNA, there's fiber that's built there, which is not digital in nature, but it's extremely hard to penetrate. And trust and knowledge and experience and culture that's built between you. And I know some of Tamer's portfolio companies and their founders, and they've really been good at this. They're like, forget the app, forget the technological innovation, we're going to operationalize this process. We're going to work with the farmers and train them and get to know their family circumstances and weave our product into that. That's their secret sauce. So, yes.
Wonderful. I'd just like to ask one quick question, because I think also the public-private, we see a lot of NGO funding, which I'll put on the public side, creates wonderful business model canvases, small competitions that companies are forced into to get little bits of hard currency to keep that business model running. Do we need to innovate that? Is that something we as VCs can say to the soft sector? Please come up with other models. These farmers have been through, or companies have been through, your same business model workshop, 3 or 4 different iterations with different partners. There must be a different way of funding. Can we put that on the agenda somehow? Tamer.
Yeah, actually, this is a true story, okay? One of our companies, a company actually Hassam is very familiar with, when they went to a part of Kenya to start operations and they want to work with farmers, farmers, generally speaking, have a mistrust issues, okay? They do not trust easily. Why? Well, excuse my French, they have exploited over and over and over again. And one of their challenges is that those programs come to their village for a year, nice program, EU or US funded, whatever it is, nice pictures at the end of the year, and they leave. And farmers, when you interview farmers, they will tell you, you know what, I don't trust this company because most probably they are not going to be here a year or 2 from now. So one of the things that this company actually thought about, innovate, is that, he said, we'll rent a farm and we will farm ourselves so that they will see that we are here to stay, to build that trust. It's not easy and it takes time. But one of the things that we always work with this kind of soft money is needed, big time. But let's use that soft money in the form of TA, technical assistance facility, where you can provide things that companies don't have the balance sheet to do, like farmers training, like hiring a consultant to build ERP system, etc. Instead of trying to come up with a business model that is short-lived and it's damaging to the ecosystem. And if I make one last comment to your point about the private-public relationship, there is research that was published by Dalberg that if a country like Kenya, for instance, invests $100 million in irrigation, specifically solar power, because we don't want to burn more diesel, right? Solar power, in 5 years, the country could reach food security, okay? It's not much money to invest, right? So the Togolese government in Togo decided to actually experiment with that. So they partnered with 2 companies, one on the distribution side and one on the production side, the company that we invested in to produce solar powered irrigation systems. And they said they will provide farmers 50%, 50, like subsidy. I know it's a dirty word, but it is, okay? A subsidy for farmers to buy those systems and see the impact, because they wanted to launch a nationwide subsidy program so smallholder farmers can have access to affordable irrigation, because otherwise irrigation is expensive, yet it's essential right now. I hope that answers as well.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid we've gone through our 45 minutes, but I think we do have 30 seconds each just to hear a plea from you as to how you think the people in this room could help, and what you're going to do as your next action to make sure that we're tackling climate change and we're doing it with the resources we have. So, yeah, awesome.
Pay attention to how much food you throw in the trash every day, and pay attention to how much food you leave behind on your plate when you go out and eat, and try to get both to 0.
Thank you. Round of applause for that.
Well, I have an advice. Whoever is interested to venture into agriculture, technology, or food technology, or clean tech, you don't need to understand in farming or agriculture. Whether you're an engineer or a tech or a marketing guy or a girl, just see how you can help the farmers. Farmers in Egypt are around 6 to 7 million with their families. They're around 40 million, so they're abundant, and they need your help, and you need them, and the community needs them. So see how you can help them with an innovative solution and with an enablement to reach the market, to be more efficient, to be more productive, and to link them to the ecosystem. You don't need to do farming. ادي العيش لخبازه. You need to do what you do best. Don't go out of your way, and help the farmers do what they do best, which is farming. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just a quick comment for those young entrepreneurs out there. If you are thinking of your next venture and you're thinking of agri and food as a potential sector, don't ever listen to anyone who tells you there is no money in ag or there is no money in this sector. There is a lot of money in this sector, a lot. Absolutely. Not only a lot of money from the investors, but a lot of money as making money. Okay, those large companies like Ulam, like Cargill, etc., they've been in business for years, some of them more than 150 years. In business, making money, okay, and thinking that that sector is where people don't make money it's a big myth. People, for some reason, just say it to each other, but guess what? The only beneficiary is those who are making money right now.
Well, I think that we've heard some amazing answers. Let's have a round of applause on that one. From my own side, I think we've talked today about the world being on fire, the fact that we might not have enough food over the next 30 years or onwards. And what we've heard from the money side is that they're here to fix the solution and to work together with entrepreneurs to make that happen. So, the world may be on fire, but with your innovations and some of the money that's coming from these guys, we've got a good future. So let's have one big round of applause for all of you as entrepreneurs.